Hello everyone, it is I, Jack Wallen, and this is a new video series that I'm going to try to start. I don't know why, because I already have enough going on in my life. But anyway, this new series is called News from My Mouth. And effectively what it is going to be a way for me to announce to you the various and sundry artistic endeavors that I have going on, of which there are generally plenty. Right now, the news from my mouth is about 3 different books that I am in the process of writing. Well, I'm in the process of writing one, and I'm in the process of releasing 2 others. Now, let me talk to you about those. First one I'm going to talk about is the first book that I have that's due to release. And that book is For Whom the Reap Tolls. If you've been following me, you know that this is the 3rd book in the Reaper series. The Reaper series published by Devil Dog Press. And this particular book is the 3rd in the series, and it is, I think, one of the best in the series. Of course I'm going to say that, because I'm the writer of the book. But I had more fun writing this because I also have a cat down here bumping up against my table, so I apologize if it seems like there's an earthquake going on. That earthquake is called Bazo, the cat. So this 3rd book in the series expands on the universe, the Reaper series universe, and not only gives some backstory of the Eternals, or in particular one Eternal, it brings to life new Eternals. And it also gives a little bit of backstory with our main character, Grimm. I think this is an important backstory, and it further evolves the story between Grimm and Fate. And this 3rd book also introduces 2 new characters, Emmanuel and Trinian. They are the owners of Fate Eternal, which is a bookstore. And I think readers are going to really appreciate this book, or those 2 characters. And, of course, I bring in elements of kind of some surprises from other universes of mine. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But, and there are plenty of Easter eggs in this series. And the character of Jonesy continues on. But I think that one of the things I want to say about this book is that originally the Reaper series was only going to be a trilogy. Devil Dog Press wrote me a contract for 3 books, and I fulfilled that contract. And in the middle of the 3rd book, I was hit with a happy accident. What I thought was a beautiful way to end the series. And it was, for the first time in my career as a writer, I think, that I had planned on writing a happily ever after, an HEA. And if you're a reader of romance, you know exactly what that is. So I was really excited about that because I like to push myself. I like to force myself into outside of my comfort zone and write things that I have never written before. And this was going to be one of those chances. Well, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. And Devil Dog Press and I reached out to Devil Dog Press and I said, look, I'm really loving writing this series. Is there any way that you might consider it continuing on? And much to my surprise, they agreed. They said, yes, of course, we want this to go on. So I was incredibly happy. But at the same time, I had this perfect happily ever after set up for this 3rd book. So what I decided to do, I figured out a way to push that happily ever after to the 4th book and make it a way to begin a story with a happily ever after. And of course that happily ever after will come to pieces or fall to pieces and blah, 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 and shenanigans will ensue. So, long story short, I'm already prepped for the 4th book, and I'm really excited about that. And I think that when you read the end of the 3rd book, you will know where the 4th book is going to go. And I should say that when I came into this little happy accident for this happily ever after, I was kind of filled with hope, not just for the book and the characters, but just in general for humankind. And I know that might sound crazy because it is a work of fiction, but every so often you got to latch onto that little kernel of hope and hold it dearly. And that's For Whom the Reap Tolls. It will be available for purchase October 31st. That's Halloween. That was intentional, by the way. You can already go to Amazon.com and pre-order it. Of course, there's only 2 days left, but doesn't matter. Pre-order it. Buy it. Love it. Anyway, let's move on. The next book that will be released is the sequel to The Dark Seduction. And if you're unaware of what The Dark Seduction is, it is the first book that stars the UK band Fluid. Now, unless you don't know, you may not know, I don't know, you may know, who knows. I'm a big fan of this band. I've been a big fan of this band for a very long time. And I remember coming up with the idea for the first book and thinking, well, let's reach out to the band and see if they're okay with it. And so I did. And I was surprised to find out that they were thrilled with the idea. So I wrote the first book, published the first book, and people loved the first book. The band loved the first book. Well, once again, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. This time it wasn't really funny. It was tragic. This year saw the death of Al Fletcher, who was the drummer of Fluid. He was a great drummer and a great guy. He was beloved by the band and the fans. And when that happened, originally I thought, well, maybe the series should just be done because one of the band members is gone. And I certainly don't want to disrespect him or the band or the fans of the music. So I kind of let it go. I really wanted to write the sequel, but after a while, though, I finally got up the nerve to reach out to Grog, the singer, and I said, hey, are you interested in having this series continue? Can I write a second book? And she was very much for it. And when I went in to write this second book, I knew that I wanted it to serve as an homage to Al. Because I knew that I knew how the band felt about him. And I wanted to kind of give them a gift. They've given me the gift of their music for years, and I wanted to give them this gift. And so with great caution, I dove into writing the second book, knowing that I wanted it, knowing in the back of my head, that I wanted it to serve as an homage to Al. So I wrote it, and with much trepidation and fear in my heart and my mind, I sent it off to them, hoping that I wouldn't insult them or hurt them, and hoping that I would do Al, the memory of Al, a justice, a service. And it took a bit, but eventually they got back with me and they gave me the go-ahead. And so, thank you, Heat. It's cold snap coming in here, so the heat is on right now. We're going on with it. I've got the cover done. The book will be released in the middle of December. I'm thinking like December 10th-ish, maybe, whatever Tuesday is in the middle of December. And I think you're going to like this book a lot. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed writing this one much more than I enjoyed writing the first one because I knew that it was serving a sort of different purpose. And I was able to kind of unleash my creativity in ways that I'd never done before. So I'm really excited about this book. And that leads me to the third book. The third book is Suicide Machine. It's the sequel to Suicide Station. Now, those of you who have been following me know that I wasn't sure that I was going to continue with that series. Upon the release of the first book, some things happened. And the things that happened seriously made me not ever want to touch that universe again. And I had, for all intents and purposes, decided that I was done with that series and that was it. It was going to be one book and I was okay with that. But then, two things happened. The first thing was I got an awful lot of feedback from readers saying that I needed to continue the series on. And I took that to heart because that means a great deal to me. And the second thing that happened was I recorded the audiobook. And by the time I finished recording the audiobook, I realized that I had to write the sequel. I enjoyed recording that audiobook so much, and I felt so much for those characters and the universe that I had no choice. I had to write the second book. And the thing is, I had no idea where to go with that series because I had, in my mind, I had brushed it off. I'd set it aside. So I hadn't given it any thought, at least the story, the plot. So I did what I usually do when it came time to start writing it. I wrote the first word and just decided to let my gut take me where it needed to go and let the characters dictate the story. And something really crazy happened. I have been talking about this for a long time. I have wanted, and I have put in motion the idea of creating a metaverse for a long time, in which I would bring all of my universes together. And I thought, upon inception of the idea, that the universe that would serve as the binding factor for that metaverse would be the iZombie series. That's where everything was going to come together. I was fairly certain about this. And I started laying the little ideas and little landmines here and there for this idea within that series. And then all of a sudden, while I'm writing Suicide Machine, the metaverse happened. It just happened. Out of nowhere, boom, the universes collided. And I couldn't stop it. And I wasn't about to stop it because it happened organically, and that's how I write. So I let it do its thing. And it worked out so perfectly. And the metaverse made so much more sense in this world, in this universe, than it would have in any other of my universes. That all of a sudden I realized, okay, well, the Suicide series has to keep going. I have no choice now. I'll write Suicide Machine, I'll release it, and then I'll write another one, and another one, and another one, and we'll see how far it goes. Now, I don't know when Suicide Machine is going to release. I'm about a week within finishing the first draft of the book. And it's got to go through a number of phases. But I'm thinking probably the end of January, beginning of February. So you can look for it then. But I'll be talking about it more. So you'll hear about it over and over and over and over and over again. Anyway, that's my big news. I know it's not like earth-shattering kaboom news, but it's news, right? And it's news that you heard from my mouth. And that's the important news, because the world in which we live in right now, sometimes it's hard to tell what to believe. Well, guess what? You can believe every word I just said because what? Huh? Yes, it came from my mouth. It's news about me, from me. Horse mouth. Understand? All right. I'm going to try to do these entries on a pseudo-regular basis. I'm doing so much now that I don't want to become overloaded and overwhelmed. But it's nice to be able to talk to you people. You people. That was awful. Shame on me. Bad toad. Bad toad. It's nice to be able to talk to you, my friends. Anyway. Thank you again for your support, continued support for me and for artists everywhere. We live in a world in which artists are somewhat relegated to the shadows. And I cannot begin to tell you how much your support means to me and us everywhere. Thank you again for listening. Thank you again for reading. Thank you again for giving me your precious time. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye.